Welcome everyone. We're going to start officially, and this is actually going to be videotaped today, so you might be in the video somewhere, because we're going to put this on the MNSOTA website so that people that weren't able to attend can have a chance to just hear about this program. I'm Jane Lindy Capistran. I teach at Concordia College, and I've been on the mentorship, or I have been the mentorship advisor for the MNSOTA board, and I was very excited when the board decided that they wanted to do something and use actual funds that we have in our savings to really promote a mentorship program here in our state. And on the national level, I know the ASTA folks are trying to get this going too. So if you go to the ASTA website, you'll also see some information that they're putting out. It said that if you want to be a mentor, they're still kind of in progress about how to do that. But we'll get going here in the state of Minnesota and try to maybe be kind of a role model for some other states as well. Did everybody get a little pink folder or the handouts? So that you should all have these that were, yes. So this is kind of just a basic starting kit for those of you that will plan to be a mentor. And I'd like to see a show of hands for those of you that are teachers that have taught less than 5 years that want to be a mentee. Can we see some of our mentees here? Wonderful. Because we are here to help and serve you. And our program really won't get off the ground unless we have people like you, have our mentees. So we're really anxious to get out there and do some assisting in your teaching career. If you take a look at the front page, the cover page, I just wanted to list some of the sources. I think these are very important. And they guided me as kind of putting this little handout together. Let's see, do we have any more of the handouts? They're all out. Could you just look on and share today, and then we'll make sure to get you some, all right? And are you an experienced teacher or a new teacher? Very good, okay? So you want to be a mentor. But in the sources, you can see there's this book that's printed by GIA Publications. It's the Handbook for the Music Mentor, Conway, Smith, and Hodgman. It was actually published in 2010, but I still think it's very to date with what's going on. And actually, I've used it a lot as a resource when I've gone out and observed student teachers too. So it's a great source, and if you ever get this book in your library or maybe your school would purchase it, a good source for you to have. And then, of course, I drew upon some of our national ASTA information also there, and the NAFME people, because of course NAFME also has a mentoring program in progress. So you can go to some of the NAFME sites and also get some really great ideas and tips that you might want to use when you're out working with a mentee. And mentee teachers, you might go to those websites and find out some different things that, oh, I really need to figure out some of these things. I'm going to ask my mentor about that. So some great sources there. If you take a look at the very first page, the mentor guidelines and tips, I just started out with sort of these successful B's of a mentor. And I think the very first one is probably the most important, to be a good listener. Because oftentimes we want to just tell our mentees just tons of information because we know tons of information. But we really want to make sure that we listen to them and find out sort of their needs. And so we'll talk a little later about how we can do that. But it will develop a nice trust between you and your mentee, and you'll have a better understanding then of what they need. I said be intentional. Let them know that they're not a bother. You are there for them. So later on we'll talk about setting guidelines about how much they can bother you and how and when they can get in touch with you. But don't try to tell them that you're not available at certain or whatnot, or maybe tell them that you can't be contacted here, and let them know that they're welcome to contact you when they are in need. Be nurturing, and I said guide without judgment, so that we're going to be advising, we're going to be assessing, but we want to be careful that we're not making them feel judged and kind of under the microscope at all times. I said be insightful. Use your experience to help guide in their successes or their failures. And we experienced teachers also have failures, and so that a beginning teacher will have those as well. And we want to make sure that we guide and support them through their good moments and the moments when they need some help. Be supportive, protective. Honesty, caring will allow your mentee a positive learning experience. So, we experienced teachers maybe know some of the things in our world that are not always so positive, but maybe we don't want to load that on our mentee right away from the get-go. Be affirming. Just as we do with our students, tell the mentee when they do well. So we want to make sure that they feel like they're in a good spot and they know that they have done some things successfully. Our next category, I said styles in mentoring. And of course, I know many of you have had student teachers, you experienced teachers, and probably these are some of the same stages that maybe you feel like when you're working with a student teacher. But the first thing that we are as a mentor is that we are a teacher. So at the start, you can expect to answer questions just to give them those immediate answers, like, how do I get a PO? What do I have to do to set up my orchestra for the full orchestra? Where do I buy a new cello? And things like that. You might just immediately have to give them those answers, and they might ask for that kind of information. Then maybe as things develop, you'll become more of a coach. You can step back now and let the teacher take flight. Sort of that Socratic approach can help discover their answers. So maybe you're there observing those teachers, and they have done something, and later on you could say, well, what would you do if this? Or how did you think this went? So again, you can be on the listening end and get some of their feedback and find out how you can coach them in some of their things, and they might be able to answer some of their questions themselves too. Next, collaborator. Share your combined experiences and begin to solve problems together. So you might find out that they have the same exact situation, maybe with a colleague or an administrator or a student. And you could say, I had that same situation, and here's maybe one way I dealt with it. Maybe now we can brainstorm some ways you can, solve this situation, or, teach this particular passage or this technique. Sponsor. Introduce your mentee into the professional world, the organizations, and assist them in networking. I think this is always helpful for a new teacher. So maybe just within the community, they might want to play in a local orchestra or chamber group, or maybe there's a workshop. You can bring your mentee to a workshop, or if you go to MMEA, encourage your mentee to come along. Of course, we want all of our mentees to be a member of ASTA, and so if they're not, you can introduce them to our organization and have them join. So different things like that. We want to get them out and kind of get them exposed to other colleagues and organizations. And then even in your school district too, even within departments outside the music department, maybe you're able to help them network a little bit there so they get more familiar with custodians or the secretarial staff or things like that, other areas. I said, a counselor. You are a career role model and can advise the new teacher in their short and long-term goals. So, many of us have gone on in our teaching world and done some master's degrees, or we're working on our continuing ed credits. I know some of you are doing that here. And so we might want to talk to our new mentee about, have you thought about, in your lane changes, how you're going to develop that, how you're going to maybe do some conducting things. Are you thinking about grad schools? That's something you want to do in the future. Where do you see yourself 5 years from now, 10 years from now? Do you want to continue in the middle school? Are you thinking that you'd like to work in different ages? So you can kind of help them and see that vision a little bit as they're doing that. And then lastly, I said colleague. You will have cultivated an effective and productive leader in their field. So now you're ready to stand really side by side, and it might take some years, but stand side by side as an equal with this teacher. So, and these styles of mentoring, you might not really even get past the second or third kind of style in your mentoring. You might have a teacher that really needs some help more with just the teacher part of it, or right there the coach part of it. So it might take several years before you really become that collaborator with that teacher. But we're striving, to find all these different parts of that mentoring. All right, now I said to get started, I've got some other little handouts in your folder there that will just be an aid for you. And it's really mentors, those of you that are here, mentors it's your choice if you'd like to use some of these materials, and maybe you have some other materials, but this is some way just to kind of get you going. The first thing I said, initiate the first meeting with your mentee within a week of your assignment. So I know that Alyssa's going to be a new teacher in Dawson, all right? And if one of you gets to be assigned to Alyssa, right away we want to make sure that we contact her so she's not kind of wondering, where's my mentor, all right? So we want to make that initial contact very quickly. And then I said a friendly, caring, and thoughtful conversation will be important. You know, you might be the first time you meet. It could just be over the phone. If you're able to meet together, you know, you could do a meal, you could do a coffee, you might just want to meet in their orchestra room, something like that. But do that promptly. And then I said for your first meeting, sort of have an agenda about what you're hoping to do in their mentoring process. And then I have these materials. So I'm just going to have you pull out the one that says the Mentee Needs Survey. So you could have this conversation with your mentee, and I said this would remain confidential, just between you and your mentee, about things that they maybe are really hoping to work at or get information about. And I said on a scale of 1 to 10, with 10 being the most important thing that they might need, you could have them go through this, and maybe they want to do it before you get there, you could do it together, but just some things that they feel like they want more help with. So, of course, classroom management discipline, you know, we all probably think that that might be a good one that they might need help with. And maybe initially they feel like they don't either, too. Maybe they feel like, oh, they've got it under control. They get a certain class of freshman boys and they need help. So it might evolve as you're going through this, you know. Tuning processes, you know, how do I tune when I have the full orchestra or whatever? How to pace their rehearsals. Just some conducting skills. Are they feeling confident with that? Keyboard skills. If they're working with some elementary students, are they able to get to the piano? Arranging and composing, you know, maybe that's not really even necessary. Improvising, maybe not necessary. Specific string instruction. You know, maybe a bass player would really like more violin help. Maybe even just how do I teach them spiccato or, you know, shifting into fifth position. You know, there might be a very specific thing that they want to get going on. Knowledge of materials and repertoire, different orchestral things or method books. Just their daily planning and organize. How can I get organized? Student assessment and evaluation. They might have to actually give a letter grade. How do I do this? Computer and technology skills, I would put a 10 right there for me because, you know, and probably you younger teachers are much more skilled at that than some of us mentors might be. So you could show us a few things. Knowledge of teaching method styles, communications with students. You know, if you get up in front of the class and you're just not feeling very confident or comfortable. Parent communication. What ways can I communicate with my students' parents? Should I start a website? Should I hand out a newsletter? You know, can I give them phone calls? Things like that. Field trips and travel, if you're in a high school. Yikes, how do I plan a trip? That's like a biggie. Diversity, multicultural teaching, cross-curriculum teaching. Of course, this is oftentimes stressed in a lot of school districts, and they might want to find ways to do that. Building relationships with other teachers and administration, a good thing that you can help them with. That's maybe where you can get kind of your networking going. And then program advocacy. You might be in a situation where they're told that your district, as my dear student Becky found out, that they were going to cut that string program, you know, and how do we find out how that we can champion that? So they might need help with that. So, and then I said additional needs, because there might be other things that aren't on this list, or you as a mentor, you know, could suggest. So this might be a good way to start with your mentee, you know, just to find out kind of what they need help with. And then this is the next page there. I said a music mentor program calendar checklist. This is super basic, and you could have a really more developed one, but you know, maybe that new teacher is figuring out, well, now I'm told I have concert dates. Their concert dates might already be planned. Are your concert dates already planned? Okay, so she might want to put those concert dates on this calendar. Maybe if she has to do a choir or an orchestra tour, maybe their grades due or whatever. just different things that they might want to put like markers on their different months, and then how much planning that might take to get some of those things accomplished, so that they could always have a little visual. And they probably have even a more elaborate calendar on their computer or whatnot, but get a visual about how they're going to plan their year. And you could help them with that a little bit too, because maybe what it takes to get ready for that first concert. Well, do you have the repertoire? Are you having sectionals? Do you share it with the band and the choir? Just all this and that. So this might be a good way to kind of get going on your agenda. Another thing I thought would be kind of a fun thing to do with your mentee, and I put here a journal journey, all right? So this could be something, maybe even on your first meeting, you could go to the dollar store and buy them a little notebook or something as a gift, and say that, I'd like for you to keep a journal. It doesn't have to be like a daily diary or anything, but maybe when there's some really great moments in your teaching or some days when you're not feeling good, you could jumpstart their journals by some of these different topics on here. And I won't read through all of them. You can look at them, but there's some different topics like, well, why am I teaching? Who are my students? What are they like? What about my teaching methods? And then the last three would be kind of some more of the emotional things. What event happened today that was great? Did I get goosebumps in rehearsal or whatnot? What event happened today that was not so great? I lost my temper, or I couldn't control something. What emotions do I feel, or what do I want to speak up about? Do I have words of thanks or concern? And so maybe if they keep a little journal, then when you meet or when you discuss, this would be some things that you could go through. And you could talk with your mentee about, what's happening. There's also some statements down there. This is kind of like an English thing. They could finish the statements. Tomorrow I will. Or I want to ask my mentor this. Or the hardest thing to do is. So there would be some great ways that you could start some good conversations if they keep a little journal. And that might be one thing to do. Okay. Going back to the guidelines and tips, I said another thing that maybe you want to do on that first meeting is that maybe they have some scores or method books that they have questions about. So they could bring those and you could visit about that or talk on the phone. Okay, then here is what I said next. Set your style of communication and the boundaries within it. Remember, we want the mentee to know that they certainly are not a bother. We're intentionally there to help them. But, maybe you want to make sure that they're not texting you, every hour of the day, after every class they're giving you a text. That's not what we're about, So maybe set up how you'd like to be contacted. Do you want to do this over email? Is that a great way? Or do you want to call each other? Maybe you check in every, Friday at the end of the school week. Or maybe every other week you check in. So you can really make those decisions. And then, of course, we, with a generous agreement of the MNSOTA board, will be offering our mentors stipend so that if you can travel to your mentee school and do some observations in person, there will be some stipends for that. And I'm going to let Michael tell you what those numbers are because I kind of forgot. Was it $125 for a whole day visit?
I think they talked about some guidelines like that.
Yes, and I'm sorry that I don't have those in my head. But mentors know that, you will be reimbursed if you have to leave a day of school, all right, or half a day of school, and if you want to make that contact and go observe your mentee in a different school district or in a different building. So you will be rewarded some. And of course, it means you may have to get out of one of your school days or whatnot, but hopefully, there might be ways that you can handle that when you don't have a school day and your mentee does. So there will be stipends. One of the things is that we really do want to keep this relationship professional. And so that's why we want to make sure that we set those kinds of boundaries as far as contact. Yes?
I did look at our notes. It was between $125 to $150 a day. I think it depends on the length of the day, what's involved.
Yes, and the length of travel or whatnot. So,
it would include plus mileage.
yes,
So that would be the fee when you would add mileage onto that as well.
yes,
And we reimburse it like this.
yeah. And one of the things that we thought that would probably be kind of a good guideline is that if you're able to do some personal observations, maybe a maximum of 3 during that school year. So, but that means then you're still in contact on the phone, on email, you know, on a bi-weekly or tri-weekly or something basis. I think at least once a month you want to check in with your mentee so that we really have that connection all the time. Then I said, you each have expectations of each other. Make sure to clarify these. So, you know, mentors, you want to make sure that you're helping your mentee, and when they talk about, you know, I had trouble really conducting this passage, you know, and nobody's watching me, and what do I do? That you can maybe help. We talk through, we give them some guidelines, and then maybe the next time you're observing or the next time you visit, say, that was your assignment. Did it go better for you? You know, that we're giving some expectations. We're trying to make sure that we've got goals for them so that they know how they can improve. And mentees, we want you to make sure that, you know, you have expectations of your mentor too, that yes, they're giving you this guidance, that they're helping you answer these questions. And I know mentors, we might not have all the answers. I never have all the answers, so I'll go to somebody else that may, can you help me with this so that I can help my mentee? So feel free that, you know, if your mentor is not able to help you, ask your mentor, can you find out? And then they can get back to you with other information. So, all right. And, you know, I guess in the whole process, kind of our styles of teaching and mentoring, we want them to become that colleague. We want them to become that independent, you know, teacher, that independent educator, so that they feel confident when they're, you know, in this process of all this training. All right, I've got one last page that I want you to take a look at. Well, actually, there's 2 pages, but take a look at the end of the year assessment. And this is both for you and your mentee. We'd like you both to fill this out. And since this is kind of our inaugural beginning of this program here in MNSOTA, it'll be really helpful to get your feedback from both mentors and mentees. But it's also for you to kind of discuss what worked and what didn't work in this process. So, you know, we want you to list, of course, the dates that you were observing, and maybe you could also add there, you know, how often you were contacting each other. How did you do that? And was it by email, was it by phone, and so on. Then there's the communication, what positive outcomes, what was the most valuable part of the program, and then your good suggestions. If there's things that we can add, things that we forgot, things that maybe we could develop more. So that will be really helpful, and then we can tweak things as we go along with this program. I want to show you the application too. That's in your folder. That should be your very last page. And for some of you that are feeling like you want to do this today, you could fill it out and give it to me. But we want the mentee, of course, to check their side, our mentor to check their side, and then you both complete the information on the bottom so that we have all that information. And this can either be handed to me, it can be mailed to me, it can be emailed to me, and so all my information is there. Then we on the MNSOTA board will, of course, be helping each other make sure that we can get our assignments. So, and there were different guidelines that we had said, you know, proximity is kind of a good one because we want a mentor and a mentee to be somewhat close together so that mentor can get to that school. And other things might be, you know, like grades. So if you're teaching in the elementary and we have an elementary mentee, you know, that would be a good pairing and things like that. So that's kind of how we'll try to make sure that we have our matches together. All right? Any questions that you might have for the start of this program? Yes?
So do you think the observation of a concert is a good idea, or do you think it should be in the classroom?
You know, classroom might be more helpful. I mean, maybe a concert could be one of them. Sometimes that process is sometimes even more valuable, you know, than what that final outcome is, but not all the time. So maybe you could vary it up. Maybe one of those observations could be a concert setting. And that might be a good time to find out, you know, well, is this mentee feeling comfortable on the stage talking to an audience? Or are they feeling confident in how they can conduct and things like that? So maybe changing it up would be the best thing. Good. Any other questions? Yes?
Is this designed to be specifically for school teachers, or is it
No.
for studio teachers?
Thank you. I'm glad you asked that because we want to include studio teachers as well, and teachers that might be even in a private school setting. So all string teachers are included. So studio teachers would be very welcome. And, you know, then we can pair you with another teacher that is a studio teacher. So that would be great, because then you might have, you know, you might not have classroom situations, but you might have one-on-one kind of situations and specific technical things that you want help with, and repertoire advice and all that. So yeah, definitely let our studio teachers know that this is available for them too. Yes.
The handbook will say that there's a September 15 deadline to apply for sort of full school year program, and a December 31 deadline to apply for sort of second semester
Yes.
time, so that we're, just because we looked at when the board meetings are gonna be, hopefully to get the information in and then discuss about it.
Yeah, thank you, Faith. So, you know, either way, you've got until September 15th, and then we'll try to get, you know, someone out that would probably with you the entire year. And then we have the other deadline for half a year. Question?
Can you have a mentor even if you are over the 5-year range of teaching?
We talked about it, and Jim, Jim Barch, who's president, was saying we'd like to be open to anybody.
Yeah.
The question becomes, you know, like all of a sudden if we find that we've got too many people, we're gonna have to narrow it down, and we may have to prioritize.
Yeah.
But if at this point I would submit, you're here.
Yeah.
Or even like a lighter version of it, just to get another pair of professional eyes in there.
Yes, yes. I think that's fine.
Yeah, I think because sometimes you need a jump start after you've been there teaching for 10 years. You've got, boy, I'm running out of ideas. All the things I learned from my college professor and all the ideas I got from my colleagues. I've run out of ideas. I need new ones, you know.
Yeah. And mentees, I just might add this too, if you know a string teacher that you would like for you to be your mentor, you can request too, and see if that would work out. So there's that opportunity as well. Good, any other questions? Yeah.
It says here administrator signature working at a school. What if we're working at multiple schools? Do you want all of the signatures or just choose one?
Well, the reason why we wanted that is because if your mentor is going to come in and observe you, we want them to be aware of that. So I think if your mentor is going to come into any one of your buildings, make them aware of this program.
Okay.
Yeah, so that would be important.
I would say probably though, I know for a lot of positions, they assign you who your head administrator is, like who do you have to go through, who's your homeschool, and I would say that'd be the one.
And maybe that's just the one, but then alert your other principals.
But, you know, you can always say, well, so-and-so knew about it, if they knew about it.
Pass the buck. Good, any other questions? All right, well, I thank you all, I'm very excited. Yes, thank you, and of course, we are excited for our mentees, for you to get going on this inaugural program, so, excellent, thank you.